Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. This is episode 556. Got a great panel. I think I've got some great stories. I'm going to let the panel quickly introduce themselves, and then hopefully we'll be off on to the races. Stephen, would you like to quickly introduce yourself first?
Yeah, Stephen Satter from zipfish.io.
That's great. And I've got my friend Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Spencer Foreman, launchflows.com.
Got my friend John Locke. John, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, is he frozen?
Maybe not. Oh. He's frozen in a good spot.
Oh. Is he back? Are you back with us, John?
Good face for freezing.
John, yeah. Am I back? Yeah. Yeah, John from lockdownseo.com.
There we go. And we've got our special guest, friend of the show's been on a few times. We've got Andrew Palmer. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Palmer, and I'm going to change my web address, actually. This is andrewpalmer.com.
There we go. Before we go into the main stories of the week, I just want to talk about one of our great major sponsors, and that's Kinsta Hosting. Kinsta is only a WordPress hosting provider. They specialize in large, demanding websites like WooCommerce, a learning management system, large membership sites. If you have one of those type of sites or you're a developer, you should really go over to Kingston and have a look what they've got to offer. They offer fantastic speed hosting using the Google Cloud, great interface, all the bells and whistles you're looking for technically, and great support 24/7. I suggest you go over, have a look what they've got to offer, and buy one of their packages. If you do that, and I highly recommend that you do, please tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. It really helps the show, and it really helps Kinsta. So straight into the stories, and the State of Word 2020, WordPress moves to full site editing. So our great leader has spoken. What did you think, John? What did you think of our great leader's speech?
Okay, I didn't watch any of it, to be quite honest, but I know. Yeah, I don't watch the Apple I don't watch the Apple events either. But I did read the recap. Some of the things that I personally am excited for is not this next phase of full site editing. If they add a query loop block, I think that will be good. But in phase 2, they're going to roll out adding the blocks to make the site templates. I'm excited for that. And one of the later phases, I believe it's phase 4, they're going to be adding multilingual support. So they are trucking along on this. It is moving forward. So those are some of the things that I personally am looking forward to.
All right. Andrew, what did you reckon of it?
Well, unlike you lot, I watched it. So if Matt,
I watched it, but not every minute of it.
I'm a faithful follower of Matt. Well, anyway, no, but I've seen him 3 times now do a live keynote speech, as it were, and it's normally about 40 minutes, and it's pretty good because he wanders about the stage. And what I'm just going to go silly on this, and the editing was a bit dodgy. You know, there was a bit of iffy editing there, cuts and stuff like that, and none of us are professionals, but you know what? It's WordPress has got a little bit of cash. Employ a video editor that knows what they're doing. That's please. The content, I think, Matt has got this very calm voice, speaking without offense and everything. He just can't offend anybody, really. Even if he says something horrible, he can't offend it. He was quite annoyed that he doesn't like the word headless. He prefers decoupled. That was a thing. And I think, with static websites and people saying faster, we need faster. One of the questions right at the end was from somebody or other. I can't remember them, so I apologize for that. But I remember the answer from the Gutenberg editor of basically how is speed affected. We've all got this thing. Kinsta is an example. I use Kinsta as well. I use loads of other people as well. But speed is more important to developers than the owners of the website. They kind of don't pay attention to that unless it's really slow. So, 2 seconds to load a homepage, cool. 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds to load a product, cool. Customers like that. We don't want to really go every page loading in 300 milliseconds. It's just not practical with jQuery and all the stuff going on and lazy loading and all that. So the speed issues, I think Gutenberg, and I want to focus on Gutenberg because it is a game changer. We know that Elementor have got loads of money now and they're going into a cloud option. We know that Divi, I've been a Divi user from the very beginning. Elegant Marketplace was formed because of Divi. It's slow, and they deny it, but it is slow. So page builders per se, because they are necessarily coded heavily, are going to make your website slower. With the advent
you could have said that yesterday, could you? Divi's slow, could you really? Could you? But you're a free man now.
No, I was not. I've never connected to. I'm never. Nick and I have had many conversations, especially at St. Louis, and he's launched his own marketplace as well. Sort of pretty much 5 years after we started Elegant Marketplace, and Elegant Marketplace is moving on to other products anyway. But no, I could. Yes, I've always criticised Divi for speed. Oh. It's just and bloated and. When Divi first came out, it was a 2 megabyte file. It's an 8 megabyte file now. So that kind of shows you that they've put all the bells and whistles in it, which I don't think are necessary for your general day-to-day user. And having Gutenberg the growth, it's now 39.8% of the top 10 million websites or something. So the growth of WordPress Gutenberg will help that grow even quicker, because Gutenberg is, and I don't care what anybody says, and don't at me on this one, but Gutenberg is so easy to use. You just
I think we're gonna have a slightly different opinion coming up.
It's really easy to use. It's just really
I'm gonna move this on to somebody that might have a slightly different opinion than that. Let's go on to Spencer. So what did you think of the speech?
I'll grant Andrew the benefit of, once you understand the metaphors, sure. Mechanically, it's simple because there's not a lot of tools in it. But I think that's the devil in the details part, which is to say, if I went to England to drive, I only need to learn to drive on the other side of the road. Basically, operating a car is the same. It's just the stick shifts on my left instead of my right, and I got to turn the sort of outside corner. After I kill a few pedestrians, I'll probably be fine. But the problem right now is that even the state of the word, they're focusing on this thing trying to be more than just the core editor, and in the process taking forever, while at the same time trying to reinvent the basic metaphors. So, for example, I'm a pilot my whole life. I fly airplanes. In airplanes, you can move from one to the next just like a car, and you expect the controls to operate. If you got into an airplane and instead of pushing forward, it was like you needed to pull back, you wouldn't be able to fly the plane. Right now, when I get into Gutenberg, I can't figure out why the hell the controls are so weird compared to Classic when it's supposed to replace the Classic editor. That's all.
That's a learning curve issue, though, isn't it?
Precisely.
What's your onboarding process for launch flows, for instance?
What I'm saying is that
an onboarding process, right?
I'm saying that even with launch flows, with the onboarding, don't break the core metaphor of what your thing is supposed to do. Now, is it true that you can force somebody to learn? But if you've got Classic Editor, right, and that's the metaphor, for 14 years, Classic Editor's there. Why suddenly do they have to do things like take the permalink that's at the top of every page and hide it in some kind of weird way? Why, when it's drag and drop blocks, do they have to not have a control that lets you grab and drag, and instead you got to click, hold, wait, and then slide?
That was painful.
Your point on the permalink, and Vito says hello, by the way.
Oh, is he? All right.
I was working with Vito.
He can if he wants to.
Sorry, I was working with Vito yesterday, and the permalink thing came up. He said, "How do I see this page? It's crazy. How do you got to do preview, and then do you want to preview it in mobile or tablet or desktop?" That I agree with that. But change
Yeah.
is good if it's going to benefit the majority of the users, and I think it will. Faster websites, better for SEO. Mr. Locke can punch in here. And easier to use for blogging, general blogging. It's amazing.
Yeah, before I throw it over for Stephen's final comment on this, I'm really stuck in the middle between what you're saying, Andrew, and what Spencer's saying, because I agree with what you've just said, Andrew, but I also agree with the points that Spencer's making, because I just think it should have had more linkage with the past a bit. And I just think it's been so slow. The development has been, it's...
May I interject one point? Because I think we're actually all agreeing. All I'm saying is you've got an existing metaphor for how the controls work, and you want to implement blocks, which at the underlying basis is different. A classic editor is not blocks. So to make blocks work, I'm saying you have to meet in the metaphor that exists so that the users don't have to unlearn or relearn completely how to use the tool, but could gracefully transition to using blocks by way of an interface that's similar enough in control to the old one. And those 2 or 3 things we mentioned could have been done in a weekend, for God's sake.
Yeah, but to be fair, Spencer, the only problem I see in that argument, to be fair, Spencer, is Elementor doesn't exactly take any of the cues from the classic editor either, does it?
But that's my point. My point is Elementor is not pretending to be your core editor. It's a page builder. Now, that's the other larger issue. Is Gutenberg trying to be a core editor, or is it trying to be a page builder, or is it trying to be both? And I think that's also where they're losing a lot of people's trust. Is like, pick what you're trying to be and be clear about it, because it really, to me, should be an editor that has greater capability. But really, we see they're trying for it to be a full-blown page editor or page builder, and they're failing at getting there fast enough, all the while, kind of like PayPal. Go to PayPal in 2020, and you're in some kind of weird time machine laundry machine where it's like one thing is 1997, one thing's 2020. Where is that link located? Oh, they changed the menu again. It's like, come on, get your shit
it's
together.
called technical debt, Spencer. It's called technical debt. Stephen should comment on this, but it's basically
can I let him? What do you reckon, Stephen?
Well, I don't think anybody would disagree that, or some people would, but not a lot of people are a fan with how they transitioned to Gutenberg. Sure, could they've done better? 100%. But the core aspect of Gutenberg and why it's a good thing and why I am pro Gutenberg, I'm not using it yet, but I will be in the next couple of years once I get a couple other things sorted, is because it allows core WordPress to know what happens in other plugin worlds. Before, a plugin isolated itself out, so it just runs through the hooks. WordPress doesn't care. WordPress doesn't know what scripts are being loaded or what's happening. All of a sudden, with Gutenberg, core WordPress can understand a lot more what is happening with every single plugin that's added. And so that allows for that speed improvement that you've seen, a lot of more sophistications with how it's handling data, how it's storing data, how it's fetching data, how other people can query information from other plugins. And it's from moving from where we had the classic editor where there was you can decide which side your image is on or whatever. They have revolutionized the whole way that WordPress is processing and displaying the information. And so in doing that and keeping it as close to what it was beforehand, I think they're doing a pretty good job of it. Sure, it's taking a long time, but we have millions of sites using this. It's like, what other program, like PayPal, how many users of PayPal are there versus how many websites of WordPress? Like the complications that WordPress is facing when they're making these changes is astronomical. So that's why it's happening so slow. That's why it's going to take forever. But once they get there, it's going to be awesome and it's going to be great.
All right, then. Let's go on to the next story then. Oh, God. Yeah, in 2021, we need to fix America's internet. We surely do. So who do I start with this? Let's start with Spencer then. What did you think of this one?
This is one of my favorite articles because I complain about this all the time. I'm living in some weird alternative universe, but it's as a result of America's politics in particular. And so what essentially happens is I watch one of those great movies like The Bourne Supremacy or something, where there's a terrorist guy in a cave somewhere in the desert, and he whips out his laptop, and
it's normally English as well, isn't it?
Yeah, he's always just speaks in English.
The best villains are English, aren't they? Really,
the villain, right? And the villain has perfect 5G internet speeds in a cave, and here I am in fucking Chicago with 3.5 million people and billions of dollars of infrastructure capability, and I'm stuck being a victim of Comcast, where I get like one choice of a trickle through a wire that's been around since Alexander Graham Bell. What's worse, though, and this article points it out, is they keep messing with your head, because I'm 100% sure, and I do have a legal background. I'm an attorney. I did antitrust stuff when I was younger. There is no question that there's antitrust behavior going on in the United States between the 2 or 3 major players, because Comcast has certain wires and certain cables that go out to especially rural, but here in a city, and also AT&T does it. And what happens is, to pretend for regulators' benefit that they're actually offering choice, they'll solicit you 1,000,000 times saying, look at our new fiber, 1 gigabyte, blah, blah, blah. And I have the emails to prove it. It doesn't matter how many times you say, yeah, I see the box right there. Can I have it? And they go, $5,000 for fiber. I'm like,
please, sir, can I have some more? Right. Can I have some more dinner, please, sir?
Listen, our 21st century problem. Stop whinging. You've got internet. I mean, what's going on?
I'm saying it's not like a question they're not offering it to you. What they're offering to you is something that doesn't align with the reality, much like with text messaging. They said to you on your cell phone carrier today, oh, text messaging, we have it. It's 25 cents per text. You look at them like, are you out of your mind? Because you can go to 20 different carriers now. But in the internet world, they can offer you basic or give a kidney, even though the give a kidney stuff costs them nothing, but there's nobody forcing that competition to be opened up. Because it's wired, you can't bring another carrier, with one exception. And this article makes it so clear. Elon Musk is my knight in shining armor on this, because I really do believe Starlink, it's just started and the reviews are coming amazing, that even those of us in urban areas, I will pay right now the $600 to get the receiver where I can get from a satellite all the time, 125 megabyte per second download, just to stick my middle finger in the eye of the douchebags at Comcast and AT&T, because I don't need gigabit Ethernet. But what I resent is like Comcast is an artificial 1.2 terabit or whatever it is cap every month on a thing that's like an always on connection. And they claim that there's a justification, but on the record for Congress, they said that was a lie. And yet they're doing it where they've charged me, because we're home in a pandemic and the kids are watching videos, they've charged me double the price sometimes because I use too much data. I'm like, F you guys. So I would be willing to go wireless, go to satellite, pay a premium just to spite them, because I feel like that's the next step, at least in America, of breaking this monopoly. Otherwise, the only way to do it is what's happening, fortunately, in some areas of Congress, where they're bringing in like Facebook and they're bringing in Google, and they're saying like, look, guys, you guys are owning the railroads and you're taking abuse of people. So this article was refreshing, and I wish more people would talk about it, because isn't it really true that the fundamental way people have to live now is to just have like, why?
Yeah, I just consider it an essential utility. So Andrew, I'll go on then, Stephen, go on then.
I was gonna say, why hasn't mobile phones fixed this problem? Like I thought like when we went from 3G to 4G, right? Like all of a sudden we were supposed to be able to get internet that was like decent everywhere. But like now that hasn't like happened, and we have 5G, which is like barely rolling out. And so like the solution is to shoot a bunch of satellites into space. Like there's no way that is more cost effective than setting up like cellular network towers across the United States. Like I don't understand why that hasn't, like the cell phone networks haven't solved the problem. Like I probably just don't know like the limitations, because it's not an area that I know very much about, but it just kind of like boggles my mind that hasn't.
Well, it's obvious. When you look at Korea, when you look at certain Scandinavian, even other countries, it really isn't a technological problem. It's a business, like what Spencer's outlined. So, Andrew,
it's monopolistic practices. That's the
Yeah.
answer. In a
It
normal,
is.
in a
So,
normal-
so Andrew, what's it like in the UK when it comes
Well,
to
I pay £21.95 a month, pounds, and I get 70 meg down and I get 20 meg up.
that costs us
and I li-
$100 US, just like the article.
Yeah, right. So well, no, £21. What? How much is that for a
about $27?
$7? Yeah. So, but it's not reliable. My internet goes down probably 10 times a week. So I have to have one of these guys because I have to work, right? So I got a MiFi. So this is always on charge. It's whatever. But we're all right. We're a smaller country than you and everything, but we are still subject to a monopoly.
BT is
Well, it's OpenReach. They split from BT. So BT owned all the infrastructure. I actually helped by printing 6 million CDs and writing a little program to convert people to TalkTalk. But we got an ISP in this country called TalkTalk, and they built their own LLU, local loop units. The issue was when they did that, 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I can't remember, 12 years ago, they were fitting their own local loops in BT buildings, and the BT staff were waiting outside saying, "You can't come in. We're not going to." And they're literally fighting against this company that wanted to, because TalkTalk were part of the Carphone warehouse, which was cellular phones, basically. But so I was pretty much involved in that, and the launch was delayed because they couldn't get the LLUs built. Now TalkTalk have their own LLUs, they rent them out to others. We've got Sky Broadcasting that rents lines and all that kind of stuff. So we've kind of devolved it away from British Telecom. But the only people that can install your new telephone line and your broadband, and I know this because I'm just having I'm having Vodafone put in a new broadband connection to my log cabin. The only people that can install it are OpenReach. So therefore you have this massive bottleneck, and it takes you a month just to get an appointment to get your stuff installed. Yes, it's cheap. Yes, it's fairly reliable, but it honestly we've got Origin broadband in the house, and I'm piping that down to the log cabin, but I'm so fed up with the lack of service that I'm having to install my own internet into the log cabin, which is 70 feet away from the house. So we have the same issues. Connectivity, we think it's expensive. We still think it's expensive. You can get 100 meg for about £80, but or you can get, we've been able to get satellite for years. But when you think that Paris 20 years ago had 200 meg up and down, we are way behind.
Yeah. So what do you reckon, John? How do we fix this, John?
Yeah, so one of the things that was mentioned in this article, that I experienced this at the last place I was staying, where they say that you'll call them up on the phone to get it, your internet, your high-speed internet or whatever. And they'll say, yeah, we can serve that. But then it turns out that there's only one provider in the area that can actually serve it because of the way that everything is laid. And it will cost a competing company, say like Comcast in this case, it'll cost them too much to set the infrastructure to serve your home and the neighbor. It's just not worth it to them. Sure. It would be a money loser. So, I see Google Fiber rolling out in some of these cities right now. That might be an answer. Just the overall infrastructure, in the US, it definitely needs an upgrade. There are other places that are doing this better.
Yeah.
I understand it's a big place, but
infrastructure has always been an issue in the United States. I mean, you look at the train lines, that's exactly kind of the same thing that we're looking at right now, right? Laying a cable somewhere, laying a train line, laying sewer systems. There's a reason why sewers and electrical and stuff like that is highly regulated and governed, because you just can't go and lay new sewer lines down a road or new electrical lines down the road or whatever.
Yeah. All right. we're going to go for our break. When we come back, we've got some more stories. I don't think we're going to go through them all because we'll be here forever, and my panel got better things to do, but we'll get through as many as possible. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. It's been a good first half. I thought we had a couple of good stories, pretty meaty ones. A good last episode of 2020, I think. So on to the next one. So introducing Lean WordPress. What did you reckon of this one, Stephen?
I haven't actually watched any of the content they have there, so I don't know too much about it. I just kind of like glanced through it yesterday a little bit to see what they had going on, and seems interesting. But have any of you guys watched any of the stuff or tried like going through it? What did you guys find?
Well, Andrew, he's a good studier, Andrew.
Listen, listen. Yeah, great. WordPress are doing this. Wonderful, brilliant. WP1 and 101 have been doing it for ever. Brilliant. Yeah. I love it. It's great. It's free. It's wonderful. There's hundreds and thousands of website of YouTube videos where you can learn. That's how I learn. I've learned by phoning people and saying, how the hell does this happen? What do you do with this? How do I make my index page live and stuff when I was first learning WordPress? Because I'm not building websites every single day like I used to, I've kind of forgotten what to do. Yes, I can install WordPress from scratch. Why would I want to know how to install WordPress from scratch? This isn't for a new user. This is for somebody that wants to learn how to be a developer. This is developer centric because it tells you how to install WordPress on a server. You go to any host in the world now, the cheapest $2 a month or whatever, install WordPress, click. It's that easy. This isn't learning WordPress. This is learning how to install WordPress and manage a WordPress instance. Learning WordPress is how to build a site, little bit of design knowledge, little bit of this, little bit of making sure that it's fast, optimizing images. That's learning WordPress in my view. Yes, you can have some technicalities, which WP101 go into, but it's just too much. It's really kind of insular. I love the fact they've done it.
Yeah, I see where you come, John. I think Andrew made a good point here, John. It does kind of seem a bit divorced from reality of 2020 in some ways. It's the most peculiar. What do you reckon, John?
Okay, so yeah, this is the first that I had heard of Learn WordPress. Yeah. And I mean, this really should have been something that they did a few years ago at least. But yeah. But it's great that they're doing it now. I'm looking at some of these. I mean, they really need to like have a lot more content here, and make it easy for people to find, because I think a lot of people will find this stuff either on YouTube or when I was first learning, like you had Zach Gordon teaching this at Treehouse. Or there's a myriad of different places, WP101, so many other places that you could learn this. So I think that they're fighting that. Some of these things are interesting. Some of them it's like basic stuff mixed up with, here's how to use track. So it's very odd. It's very, very odd.
It's most strange. Just finish it off with Spencer. I kind of link it in a way to story one with this necessity of the great leader to make out we're all in this together, and Kumar, and get the organic cereal out, let's share it out, and blah blah blah. I have no idea why they're spending any time or resources on this, but it sounds so negative from me to say that, though. What do you reckon, Spencer?
This reminds me, having grown up, I was born in the 60s, so growing up in the space race and the Cold War, this reminds me of what, let's say, the Russians would do whenever they saw a Western country create some technology, right? Like the space shuttle, right? The Russians would make a cardboard copy of it. Or, this went on since World War II. But the point is, somebody at some place in Automatic said, oh, look, Sean Hesketh already has 2,000 videos for free that do everything perfectly, and we don't. Let's go rustle up some people that we're not going to pay to throw together some random shit and say that we've got like a tutorial thing. And it's like the Buran, which was the Russian space shuttle. It never actually flew. It just looked really good on May Day being dragged down the street and stuff. And that's the point. It's like, why didn't they instead just reach out to Sean, who I've known forever, and he says he's got it figured out perfectly. Just say, hey, Sean, can we license your stuff and slap it on over there? Because God forbid the VCs spend a little money to pay somebody what it's worth for the actual content they've created. And that's kind of the cynical approach I look at this under, is that there's already everything they need out there. Instead of just paying people to license it and bring it in and organize it and do like a modern car company might do, where you know, Pininfarina does our leather seats, and we say Pininfarina. God forbid anybody takes credit for it other than the fearless leader here. And I think that's a shame, because we're all living in complete transparency of what's going on. And yet it's disbelieving to most of us. Like, you'd rather put up a cardboard facsimile of something, pretend it's valuable, and look like a schmuck, than to just do something meaningful that all of us could actually appreciate and have somebody in charge of it who gives a shit, like who's got a financial incentive. And that's really where it comes down to. And this is true of their other plugins and other ideas as well, with Jetpack and WooCommerce and so forth. I mean, it's just...
Isn't that the WordPress way, though? It's all open sourced, everybody contributes. So you've got to, you've got to tip your hat to the, Matt is always going to go the open source way, right? Because that's the path that he's on. You can't get over that. And the 15,000 or 65,000 contributors to WordPress are working.
I think it's the path that, and I'm going to be totally cynical here, and I might be totally wrong. I think it's the path that he publicly wants to broadcast. There's the other side that gets a 300 million investment from one of the most mercantile businesses in North America, Salesforce. So it gets,
but it wasn't
there seems to be a duality there, and I have had.
Why are they doing five? Why are they doing five from the future then? If
Right.
they're getting all this VC funding, how come that isn't getting kicked down to the people who volunteer all their time?
And the veneer
That's
is
exploitation.
And the veneer is wearing thin, because let's be honest, we talk about Google all the time, right? Nobody in 2020 believes that Google follows the do only good motto anymore. I mean, they've just
taken it off.
Okay, but I'm saying, let's call it what it is. The veneer of this open source potluck dinner where everybody's just kumbaya and bringing stuff and having fun and hanging out at the picnic, that's over. It's been over for so many years. And so for him to continue to look into the camera and make people think that he's sincerely believing that, while as soon as the camera's off, everything they do is the opposite, is wasting everybody's goodwill and wasting their time. Let's just call it what it is. You want to build a profitable company. Great. Start acting like a CEO, like a Larry Ellison. Nobody believes Larry Ellison gives a shit about anything except making money, but you got to respect how he operates the company, because he's
once again, I don't know. I've been honest here, listeners and viewers. Sometimes it seems that I'm just saying it, but once again, I'm torn between Andrew and Spencer, because I actually think Matt actually think he believes this rubbish, actually, to some degree, Spencer. I don't think he is totally acting. I think there's part of him, and in some ways, I wouldn't want him to be like Allison and some of the other ball crunchers. Let's be frank about it. Even though it's irritating and in some way overemphasized, it's still great to be involved in something that is open source. whatever that means. And I think that's linked to, did you like how I moved to story 4? I thought
Nice
that was
segue.
quite good.
Nice segue.
Yeah, that wasn't a bad segue, wasn't it?
That story's
So
really
that,
relevant, though.
well, let me pull it off, Spencer. I thought it was pretty good. That's linked to story 4, the death of open source business model. So what did you reckon of this one, Stephen? Did you manage to read this one? Or?
Yeah, no, for sure.
He's waking up.
It's an interesting article to kind of move back to what we were saying and then bring it back to this open source thing. What's interesting is when you have for-profit companies putting hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of time into open source things, which is happening right now with Automatic and the Gutenberg development. Like, sure, you can be cynical and say, Matt's out to build his own empire and stuff. But the reality is he's putting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know how many developers they have on staff working on it, but the most amount of developers working on it are coming from Automatic itself, and they're just giving that away to people. There's not a lot of companies that do that. And so I think it's commendable. He's growing his empire as well in the same time. And so I think it's cool. But the whole open source thing is interesting and is somewhat of a painful place, because I think we have seen an increase and uprise of like open source. Everything's open source, right? And now we're starting to see that shift a little bit, because everything cannot be open source. Not every project works as open source. Not every project can be supported as open source.
Well, I thought that to comment on what you said, I was thinking exactly the same thing, Stephen. And that's one of the things I think WordPress got right. And I'm not sure it's going to keep going that way, but who knows? But it had the open source bit, but then it had all these little, you had what Automatic was doing, plus you had all these other companies kind of building their little fiefdoms, their little patch of commercialization all around
I think
it.
what we're seeing,
that's what made it really interesting, didn't it?
Yeah, but it's still
I think what we're seeing in the open source market right now is the readjustment of what can actually be open source and not open source. I think too many things were built open source and people got a little open source crazy, and now the community at large cannot support as many open source projects as there are, because as a developer, I could only support so many. So there became too many, and so we're seeing that kind of readjust and recalibrate. Open source isn't dead. It just needs to become a little bit smaller than it was now. That's my overall perspective.
I'm just going to say $27.5 billion was spent by Salesforce on a platform that was built on open source, right? So there's commercialization. Elegantmarketplace.com. We started it to make money. I'm never going to deny that. But we made money for vendors as well that people didn't know about. We supported the vendor. We still do. We want people to make money. The whole point of we make money Spencer makes money every single day out of WordPress. Jonathan, you do, from whatever you do. Mr. Locke, always, it doesn't matter whether it's WordPress or Drupal or whatever, you're going to make money out of open source, right? We are the luckiest people alive, but we have to make a living. We have to say, I don't like the fact that some people can come along and copy a plugin. Absolutely copy it. We've got a competitor who has copied plugins from Elegant Marketplace. Vendors worked hard to build those plugins. They've copied them. They've even put them on their own platform, and they've called them the same thing. Right? Is that right or is that wrong? I think it's wrong. There must be some kind of copyright protection for people that work really, really hard to build things that people make money out of. Now, Matt Mullenweg is making money out of WordPress. No doubt.
I think it's very interesting you say that, because I noticed, especially with Fry themes, because they're totally based outside the USA, the way that they've been protected in their plugins is totally against the GBL license. Not much has been said about Fry Themes and Shane. I think he's a fantastic marketer and a fantastic always follow, you know, his videos and what he says. But if he was based in the USA, I think Matt would be on to him like a ton of bricks. But they managed to keep away. They managed to get away with it is because they're totally based outside the USA, and it's just not practical to go after him because 5 Themes every day breaks the GPL license by what they're doing with their manager, their plugin manager, and
doesn't
other
Elementor
things.
Pro do that? Doesn't Elementor? You can't have Elementor Pro without paying your money. You can't have it.
They broke the rule and they got away with it because they're
you can't, you know, Elementor Pro is on what, 5 million, 10 million websites now. You can't use Elementor Pro, the pro things, without the license.
No, you can't.
So that's breaking the GPL rules, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
No
but
lawyer.
they get away with it because they're based in Israel, don't they? Fundamentally,
they get away with it because they have a big enough audience that I think nobody's stupid enough at Automatic to think that getting into a fist fight with them is going to win. You know, when they did that to Andrew Pearson back 8 years ago, you know, Matt can shit on his head and he comes out looking like a hero. To get in a fist fight with Elementor means Elementor's cloud hosting just takes a copy of WordPress and calls it a day, and the rest of us follow. And I think they're aware of that fact. And I'm happy to say that I would be one of the first people to go with them.
And also, I don't think it would be that clear that if they try to take it, they would probably have to take it to Israel, to the Israeli courts. And I don't know enough about that. I'm not even sure they would get anywhere.
A license is open source. This article clarifies one point, which Andrew, you've already discussed. The Linux operating system marketplace, which was 10 years ago kind of conversation. They made it clear what's happening here. It's just a lesson for us to see. When you have open source and you figure out how to monetize it through the goodwill, like Andrew pointed out, we all make our livelihood through WordPress, and God bless Matt Mullenweg for creating it.
And Mike, don't forget Mike, the co-founder, English co-founder. Right, don't forget him.
Everybody
that annoys me to hell and back that he's forgotten. Right.
But the point is, even the guy who created the original software, right? The point is, everybody who participated along the way, and Triple J and all the rest of the people we have on the show and so forth, they all participated in building this ecosystem. However, there comes a point, and that was demonstrated with the Linux environment, where a larger company, even Bitcoin is doing this to a certain extent, realizes the economic potential of that picnic, and they start handing out cash to people to come over to a system that is locked down. So in other words, you have a moment in time where the open source license, you have a come to Jesus moment of, can we continue with this as it is, or do we take our copy, follow the law, or at least what we believe is the law, and make a closed or more closed version of open source? And the way that they do that is what happened with Linux. It's you say, look, yeah, we got from 0 to here because of this kumbaya, and now we're going to say, fine, kumbaya, you guys, good luck. It's still there. We're going to take our little copy, make it a little less kumbaya. It's kumbaya with a little cost of entry, and now you're going to have to pay to use it. And no, you can no longer copy kumbaya and make whatever you want out of it. You got to license kumbaya from us. And the reality is, that's what needs to happen here. I mean, I love that everything is open source, but let's be also honest. How sucky is it that you can build Elegant Marketplace and some douchebag has every right to come along and copy everything and just stick his thumb in your eye? I mean, that's not good for business. That's not good for anybody.
I'm not worried about that from a monetization issue. I'm worried about that from a moral issue.
But there's no morals in. If you're following the law, and the law is kumbaya, you can't complain that people kumbaya. That's the problem.
I get it.
You can only kumbaya by being better at customer service or more convenience or more features, but you're in an eternal race against some guy who sticks his hose into your gas tank and just siphons out all the gas constantly. And that's why these companies changed the Linux environment. And here we're in WordPress. And I just say this because I'm a broken record. Matt and Automatic are figuring out a way on their own to get away from kumbaya with their platform, while the rest of us seemingly are surprised that we shouldn't do the same. But we should. And we will, because there's no way you can kumbaya in a marketplace that has 40% of the internet plus and think that somebody's not going to get hurt when they build up this amazing thing and somebody goes, oh, let me throw $5 million and just take the whole idea and mosey on along with it. And now I get all your ideas and I got all your code and I can just start from here. And that's, let's be honest, that's what WordPress, WooCommerce did originally.
You see the same thing. You see the same thing in like the patent world, right? Somebody has a cool patent, they have a product, they're a small company, and then a larger company comes along, infringes on that patent and litigates it till they can't litigate anymore. And then they essentially have it scot-free. Like, even if you set up rules and regulations, the larger person in this world has a way of coming out ahead, and it's very hard to penalize them.
Yeah, right. Let's go on to our, I'm going to junk the other stories because we haven't got time. So let's go on to our panel recommendations of the week. And mine, I did a video recently, which you can see on the WP-Tonic, where I looked at all the leading form building plugins. And I came to the conclusion that the best value is Fluent Forms, WP Fluent Forms. The free version is amazing, and then you've got a paid version that even offers even more functionality. And I just think it's, you know, obviously I keep my Gravity Forms because I've had that for donkey's years and I'm grandfathered in. But as a new product, if you're looking for the best value for bucks, you can't beat WP Fluent Forms. Hopefully they're going to send me the sponsorship check in the next couple of weeks. But no, I haven't been paid to say that. So, Stephen, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers? And please put all your recommendations into chat, please. It really helps me.
Yep. I'm going to recommend Elementor Extras. On a daily basis, I'm in a lot of people's sites, and a lot of people use Elementor, and the amount of garbage add-on extras to Elementor out there is staggering. And most of them I hate and get frustrated by, but this last week I was using a site with extras, and I like what they're doing. They have a good approach. They have some unique features, and they're not just copying things from the pro.
I love the name. I love the name Extras. I love it. Spencer, got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, actually, I had two, but I'm going to go with the second one. So I put a link in for how cameras work, or it's content control. What do they call it? It's called How Cameras Work, but cameras and lenses. For anybody who loves Jonathan's new depth of field, or is looking at, like, when we talk about all the time, like this is a webcam, so you see like there's no depth of field, no blur in the background. This website has these very simple drag and drop controls, so you can see, if you've never been into photography, what depth of field is, or f-stop, or aperture settings, or how it works, so you can actually understand why the hell it looks so awesome that Jonathan's printer is blurry in the background and, you know, his face is clear. So fascinating and very simple. And if you have kids,
if only I could do the opposite.
But I mean, it's literally one of those things that, if you know, I grew up in the area of doing black and white photography with old-fashioned stuff. If you've never seen that before, it's like, what? But when you see this, you can actually understand why it makes a difference. And if you're going to set up your home studio now that you're never leaving your house, I mean, really an interesting way to learn what to do. So.
Never leave this desk. I just live here. You know, I kind of, when I'm nodding off at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I kind of stagger to the bed, but I just live here now. It's a bit sad, really. But there we go. John, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah. So this has been in I got a whole bookmarks list of like different stuff. I don't know if I've ever recommended this, but it's a site called fontofweb.com. And what you do, you put in a URL and it'll tell you what fonts are being used on that website. Wow. And I'll tell you the reason why I find this interesting really quickly. I have a theory with this Web Core Vitals stuff that's rolling out. I have a theory because I've noticed that sites that seem to have a very low cumulative layout shift.
Trying to explain what the hell he's talking about last night.
Cumulative layout shift.
He lost me completely.
Anyway, if you understand like Web Core Vitals, page speed insights, one of the things they track is how much the layout shifts, like when the fonts like load up. So what you want to do is like have fonts that that the fallback matches like the main font enough to where it doesn't shift the layout. It shifts it as little as possible. So you can kind of backwards engineer what fonts are on a particular site by using this tool.
Yeah, and by the way, if you got Divi, it doesn't fucking matter because it's so bloated.
No, don't use Divi, please.
It won't make a bloody difference
I
anyway.
make my living with Divi. Shut your face.
You're downloading 10 megabyte anyway.
Mate, I tell you,
you're
Divi,
doomed
Divi,
anyway. Unless you go over to Stephen
Divi,
and get his
Divi is
optimization
great.
crew
Don't
out.
worry about
You're finished anyway.
as
So
long as you know it, it's great.
yeah. So Andrew, you got anything you want to recommend?
Yep. It's GutenbergHub.com. GutenbergHub.com. If you want to know about Gutenberg, want to load, he's a current Divi vendor on Elegant Marketplace. Munir Kamal, he's built this great thing called Gutenberg Hub. You can copy all of his layouts, all of his sections, all of everything, and then he's got a plugin called Editor Plus. So you type, I've put links in there, but basically the Editor Plus, he's learned from the page builder world, he's learned what people want, like sliders, graduated backgrounds, all that gradients and all that kind of fonts, everything.
Can I make a suggestion right here? Because Andrew, amazing recommendation. This is a guy we talked about a couple weeks ago, but what a great, can I just make a public announcement? Somebody at Automatic, go hire the guy right now and have this guy just create this inside of WordPress for Gutenberg. And we would in 1 month, fast forward 4 years. Like seriously.
They gotta go via me.
But whatever, but who cares? Go through you. You can be the, the agent. The point is, if they would just do 1 or 2 people like this, or put you in charge of hiring, we wouldn't have anything.
You got to say also. I got to say, from a commercialization perspective, there's a guy called Jamie from PST. You must have heard of PST.
Yeah, I interviewed Jamie. He came on the show a few weeks ago. Yeah,
Jamie is awesome. I mean, he's polite and affable and a lovely bloke. Lives in the countryside. You can see why he's got such a cool nature. Really talented photography, does volunteering at WordCamps and does the photography as well. PST as well, but what I like about Editor Plus and Gutenberg Hub is that it is open source. And I'm saying to Munir all the time, I speak with him every single day. I promise you, I can show you my messages. I say, we have to find a way to monetize this because you have put so much work. He's got a team of 7 people working on this, right? So it's amazing. It's just amazing what you can, and that's why I think Gutenberg is so easy to use, because I utilize things like Gutenberg Hub and the Editor Plus, and that's it. Those are my recommendations.
Right then, Stephen, what's the best way to find out more? Oh, and by the way, Stephen's been helping me with the WP-Tonic website, even though I don't use Divi, to try and make it quicker, and a couple other web properties. And he's been successful. I suggest that you go over to his website and utilize his website optimization services. So, Stephen, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, head over to zipfish.io, run a speed test, and see how much faster you can make your website.
That's great. Spencer, how can people find? Yeah, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to, Spencer?
Launchflows.com, or you can do a free call. Go over to WPFusion.com.
And we will be continuing our series of webinars with Spencer in the new year. I think we've been doing a good job about trying to explain marketing automation, haven't we, Spencer?
Yeah,
you have.
And I think Andrew and I talked about this. We didn't have a chance to come back to it, but now Andrew's got my holiday juices flowing that we'll talk again. the stuff that I'm doing, market automation, launch flows, works perfectly fine with Gutenberg, but I haven't bothered at all with anybody making templates and so forth. But now this is like a no-brainer. We'll hook up and I'll just give your guy like the code and he can just pop in their little launch
Oh, we've
flows.
got
Cool.
Manir. We've got Manir. You know, Manir will help. He actually helped WP Feedback with some layouts and everything on Gutenberg.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's just so obvious. These things all, the rest of us can pick up for the, you know, blah, 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 where Matt isn't bothering because like, that's the only choice we have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there we
think that's the way to go.
So, John, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can go to my website, lockdownseo.com. You can also find me on YouTube. Just search John Lock SEO or Lockdown SEO. And hey, I think I'm going to cross 1,000 subscribers finally.
Yeah, I've been, that's
Been
great
trying
news
for like 2
'cause,
years.
yeah, you put a lot of work into it. Andrew, well, 1,000 really, you know, the reality is if you get 1,000, but if they're really committed and watch a lot what you're doing, that's better than having 10,000 people that don't really watch much what you do. So
Yeah, true that. Yeah.
so Andrew, what's the best way to find out what you're up
Well,
to?
a little bit longer, and I'm going to use this. You can cut it out, edit it, or whatever. But wahi.io, WAAHI.io. Sign up to launch today. It's our online venue, SaaS WAS version. It's launched today to sign up, early sign up. And I'm also doing a webinar with GridPane in early January. And I really love Patrick Gallagher. And I love his team. I love his attitude. And because I'm leaving Elegant Marketplace on the 30th of December. My year is up. You know, I sold it in December 2019. It's been great working with the guys at InMotion and Web Ventures, but time to move on and get on to other things. And Wahi is where I'm at. But actually, you can find out all about me at thisisandrewpalmer.com, and everything I'm doing will be on that website.
So make sure it's in chat, and I'll make sure there people can find you. And being your special guest, you can promote as much as you like, and that's one of the nice things being a guest on the panel show. Right. I just want to thank you, listeners and viewers, for making the WP-Tonic show really popular. Our listening figures have gone up considerably during the year. I'd love to hear more from you, to comment more and to participate more. That's what we're hoping for. I want to wish you and your families, and I want to wish the panel, the regular panel, a really happy Christmas and a new year. And hopefully you keep away from the virus and you manage to survive until you can get vaccinated in the new year. And the clouds will break, the sunshine will pour out, Spencer will be able to get away from his home desk and get less grumpy. He seems happier this week than he was last week, and the clouds will break over. But to be real, I just want to wish you all a really fantastic holiday period, and we'll be back in the new year. We've got some JJ who's going to be joining us on a semi-regular basis. The man from WordPress Weekly, he's going to be joining the panel on a regular basis, and we've got some fantastic guest panelists, fantastic guests, and with Stephen's help, I think the show will go stronger and stronger. We'll see you in the new year. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. Bye.